Hey, Calvin Lanier here in the JF Kustoms killer paint and polish department. Today I'm going to show you all 3 secret tools and techniques to make your engine go from this to this. If you've ever imagined a liquid sandpaper, number 3 is as close as it gets. And no, I don't mean media blasting. We have been for a long time building show cars, but I'm sure that everybody who works on cars will find something in this video grinding things, like you can see a lot of the parts of this engine. It's a shitty job. In fact, I've been told it can be dangerous. The material this engine block and those headers were made of in the 1960s apparently has some nickel in it. Nickel's a heavy metal, it's like mercury. You do not want that in your body. What's up, Killer Kustoms family? Dad's recovering from elective heart surgery right now, so to kind of keep the ball rolling on his Acadian project and also to get a video to you guys, I have a really interesting one. I've got 3 tips, realistically more like 5, because Dad always says, under promise, over deliver. And it's all about metal finishing, detailing, polishing kind of thing, because finishing and polishing, they go hand in hand. You got to do one before you do the other. And I've got some things that I learned the hard way, and you're not going to have to. You're going to want to stay tuned, because the very last one is something I don't think a lot of people know about, and it changed everything for me. So polishing stuff, and for that matter, grinding things, like you can see a lot of the parts of this engine, it's a shitty job, but somebody's got to do it. Dad used to have a basically full function in-house polishing shop with a guy who'd been doing it for years and years, and he retired from it. So I basically inherited just this sea can full of equipment and polishing wheels and compounds and what have you, because I was, just learning through doing it. But I had all these clues of these tools in the sea can and these supplies that I never knew what they did. And now I've got a really good handle on it, and it will cut time to take apart like this. Make it look like this. And you can make it look something like this. The theme of Dad's YouTube channel and the message that he wants to get across is that you don't have to have a lot of money to have nice things. You just have to be willing to put the time in and work hard at the things that you have. I'm sure that everybody who works on cars will find something in this video. This, like I said, is the 409 for the Acadian. I'd been waiting anxiously to get it back from the engine building shop, because I built the 409 that went into Dad's 27 Roadster for the Acadian initially, until things snowballed with that car's build, and it wound up going to Grand National. We had to put the nice engine in at that time, and Dad was saying, oh, we'll pull it back out, we'll put a 348 in it that's less nice. Yeah, right, no, so we're here building another 409, including all accessories, polishing and whatnot. I had about 200 hours into that engine. This one, I've got it 3/4 of the way done. I'm at about 80 to 90 hours in it. So starting from the top, even in Detroit, even in Pomona at the Grand National Roadster Show, when you have $1 million cars on carpet on stands, mirrors underneath, there are certain areas of this engine that even a judge with one of those mechanics mirror on a sticks, he's not gonna be able to see them. So my very first step with this engine is I guide coated the engine. I masked off the ports and openings so nothing would get in the engine, and then I redressed it, put the headers on, put the intake manifold on, I masked up the carburetors, and then I sprayed from the angles that I thought you'd be able to look at the engine. So everywhere that you can reach with the paint, you can probably see with your eyeballs. But there are areas that you will never, ever be able to see under any circumstances. Every bit of the guide coat's gonna come off anyways, because by the time that I've ground this green guide coat down, that's when I've got all of the casting ground down to the lowest points. There's a reason that we don't just scuff the casting, fill it with Bondo or slick sand. conditions in an engine bay, they're just not conducive to having too much paint in there. I have duct tape masked off the head bolts. These head bolts, I don't want to take them back out. It's thick enough that typically, if you're careful, the grinder might nick it, but it'll save the bolt. Now, if you really have to work an area, maybe you put 3-4 coats of duct tape. And I have an area here. I'll pop the header off now. There is areas here on the block where I spent a lot of time smoothing. There's a, like, call it a body line right there. I have masked this off here because there's a perfectly straight edge that I put in. I put a lot of effort into making this line straight and not wavy. It's nearly impossible to get tools into this crevice right here underneath the head. And you're also concerned about wrecking the aluminum head too. I mean, I've also taped the front of the head to do the block, and I've now taped the block to do the front of the head. If I'm grinding the iron block, it's gonna take a lot longer than to grind the aluminum. What might be a nick to the iron is gonna wreck the aluminum, and that is a consideration definitely to take. If you leave more accessories on the engine, you probably wanna tape more off. On the subject of the different materials at play, for me, the PPE is a really important thing. I mean, I'll forget to put on a mask and I'll be coughing the rest of the day because the material this engine block and those headers were made of in the 1960s apparently has some nickel in it. Nickel's a heavy metal, it's like mercury. You do not want that in your body. Don't ever forget the glasses, the safety glasses. Getting into pro tip number 1. Spiral rolls. I found a couple of these around in one of the cabinets with grinders in the shop. Spiral rolls can be bought at Princess Auto. That's where I got these. The kit will come with a sort of central shaft die grinder bit. It's not as cost effective to buy these as to use belt sander paper, which I found in the sea can, and I assumed it was for belt sanders. This used to be a really long bolt that I just cut down, and then I stuck it into the die grinder because it's the right size shaft for the die grinder. That's crucial. You can do a lot with just nuts and bolts. You don't need fancy stuff. But then I kind of ground this area into a little needle tip, just like the one that came with the kit, and I tried to cut a couple threads into here. I didn't try hard enough, but it works perfectly as it is. So what you're gonna do with these bits and with your belt sandpaper, pull a length of it depending on the diameter of the spiral roll you want. Fold it over really tightly a couple of times, and you fold over a couple of times and then start to roll it up. So if any of the viewers like to smoke pot, those doobie rolling skills are gonna come in handy. After I roll it up, I use electrical tape. I find that when you stretch it, it's got this cling wrap-like ability. And then the last step that I do is I do take the scissors and I cut off the little flapper bit left near the very end. I cut kind of diagonally around it until it's all one consistent diameter without the flap sticking out. These are really good for getting into even the 3 angled corners, but I've even used them to get into fully enclosed spaces. You know, the spaces that you could barely stick a finger in with some sandpaper. I do have a couple of the central shaft bits that I've cut the ends off. That's because when these get shorter, they're still useful, but you'll have that metal shaft sticking out the end and that will gouge up your metal. So if you have one that's long and one that's short, then you can still thread it into the, you know, inch-long version of your spiral roll, and you can keep using that. One other reason why the spiral rolls are so deadly, and this is kind of a big reason, is because when you're grinding on iron, steel, it's harder, it takes more time to take material off, and you're gonna use something more aggressive, like a carbide or a stone bit in the die grinder for the inside corners. Yet, this stuff does not work for aluminum. In fact, I've been told it can be dangerous. These carbide bits, they tend to gum up. I think the aluminum kind of liquefies and then they're bordering on useless at that point when they get too full of the aluminum. The stone bits, however, I've been told can actually explode. Just get a couple spiral rolls. It takes multiple different shapes as you wear it out or if you use it at a different angle. Pro tip number 2, I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with this kind of a flapper wheel. I just go down to the parts store, pull them off a shelf. They got different diameters, nice for getting into radiuses, and also very efficient at flattening surfaces, taking a lot of material out in a consistent and fairly elegant way as opposed to a grinder. But I want to say people call these flapper wheels, I'm going to call them the doohickey. The doohickey is an excellent kind of multi-purpose bit. It can get into inside corners, but what I love it for is the flexibility that it has allows you to make round outside corners. You don't want to give it a stop sign shape and take a 90 rounded corner and turn it into 245 sharp angle corners with a flat surface in the middle. So these guys will flex around the outside corners, and you can do them with varying thicknesses, and by that I mean use 2 pieces of belt sandpaper or 4. What you do is you take your belt sandpaper and you start by cutting a few squares of it. 2 will face down towards the grinder and 2 will face up. You can do it with a nut and a bolt. We have these nice bits that are meant for cutoff wheels, and I will drill a hole through the belt sandpaper, the right size, and put it all together. Like I was saying, when you want more flexibility, you go down to 2 pieces. This one over here is basically the same concept as that part store flapper wheel. Making these Dremel flapper wheels is so easy that I almost don't feel like I have to explain it to you guys, but quickly to break it down, find a cotter pin from a cotter pin kit, and you cut a few lengths of emery cloth. Take your cotter pin that fits into your Dremel, you just slide them into the cotter pin, half them facing one way, half them facing another way. And then what'll happen is the Dremel spins only one way, and you can take the cotter pin back out, flip them around so that you're using the other edges of them and get all the use out of the pieces of emery cloth. One other huge time saver we've been doing here for a while is putting our old used Scotch-Brite onto a die grinder. This one is kind of self-explanatory, but it lets you recycle those pieces that, you know, it's just taking a little bit too much effort to scratch. Well, this thing does all the work for you. It folds and flexes and gets into every kind of corner. And a thing that I like to use it for on something like the job I'm doing right now is, say I've ground with all my different kinds of grinders, and now I do want to get a look at the overall surface, you know. This guy will give it a consistent finish so I can see, have I got a little bit of a crevice here or there, a little bit of a weird line, some scratches that are too deep, but it's not exclusive to finishing things like this. I've used this to prep firewalls for paint. I used it to prep wheels just yesterday. Tip number 3, I'm gonna have to get geared up for to show you guys. It's a bit of a dirty one. I have been using this old product. I think it does expire, but I still have some that work, and I'm gonna show you how it works. So I've got all these little polish wheels here, and this I keep it in a Ziploc bag. It's an abrasive compound. It will harden when exposed to air, and it will melt when you put a polishing wheel to it. This turns a polishing wheel into a sander almost. Give you a little demonstration. And what you do is I've got a little polishing wheel here. So spin that guy in it till it melts onto him. Let's do this area here. It really works effectively and quickly. It is really messy too. You can do it on the bench polisher. It allows you to do the same thing with your loose part. You could skip a lot of the other stuff that I showed you and just use this. The polishing wheel will flex. It gets places that you can't seem to get with other tools, and it produces a really uniform finish. It doesn't leave gouges. It covers a lot of ground quickly. Okay, you guys, that is tip number 3. For most people's purposes, that all over the whole engine, and I mean, that's the nicest engine at any car show you're going to. So I've been filming this video on company time. It's about time that I get back to work and I finish his engine. All right, guys, my job is done for now. Metal finishing can be seriously hard work, and some days can be literally painful. So I hope that this video makes it a little bit easier for all of you. If you liked it, press like. If you're not yet, press subscribe. And please, please leave a comment on the video giving me maybe a tip. Maybe you know more about metal finishing than me. Maybe you've got some advice about being the star of the show and the writer and producer and editor and director. I just mean I'm wearing all the hats today, and if you've got a tip, I'm open to suggestions. Or you could leave a comment suggesting something. Maybe you miss a certain style of video that we used to post on the channel. Maybe you need an update on a certain car. I don't think this really counts as an Acadian update video, so maybe we'll get one of those out soon. Although the engine's prepped and the transmission's prepped, and David's actually color sanding and polishing the engine bay next door right now. So there's a lot happening with that car right now. Big steps coming really soon here. And as always, the best way to support the channel is to head to killercustoms.com and get yourself a t-shirt and get entered to win the 50/50 Camaro. And thanks again for watching. Take care, y'all.